Baby Scorp, do 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 do. Is that how that song goes? Baby Shark, Baby Scorp, Baby Scorp. See the joke I just made there? That was funny. That was funny. It's in the title too, so you should still be laughing about right now. Baby Scorpion, the American Tier 7, just finished a 100 battle challenge on this thing. Ended with 50%. Ooh, a little bit painful. It's a weird tank that occupies a weird niche in World of Tanks, which is a niche that nobody wants to occupy. It's the glass cannon that doesn't really have that amazing of a gun. That's tough. That's tough in this game, the way the game is designed and played. Those kinds of tanks have very little, I don't know, very little impact, I guess. If it's left to its own devices and can stay hidden and shoot rounds down range, it can do pretty well. But you can say that about every single tank in the game. So it doesn't really bring anything amazing. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the stats for this thing. Here we are. Tomato.gg, and we're looking at win rate. We come down here, we find the Scorpion right about the middle of the pack, and you're going to find in a fairly similar position for everything. DPG, middle of the pack, down here on frags, middle of the pack, damage ratio a little higher because it's kind of low on the hit points. It tends to survive well. If we come up here, it actually gets to number 4 in survival, probably largely because it has pretty good camo and not very many people are going to rage forward in this thing. So some tanks kind of lend themselves towards getting certain stats because of the way they're designed or the way they're played in the game. I wouldn't say it's survival is because it's greatly armored or highly maneuverable. It's just people look at this thing, the lack of armor, and say, well, I probably shouldn't be up front bashing people in the nose. So I think that's fairly valid. All right. This particular tank, I am done 100 battles. We'll take a quick look at my stats. Now, I was doing a video on every one of the tanks I got to 100 battles. I sort of fell away from that a little bit. We're going to try to revive that to some extent and make these kind of small reviews, mini reviews. But if you take a look at how I've done in this thing, 50%. I had a pretty good win rate at about 30 or 40 battles when I started playing this to get to it to 100. Then it kind of nosedived. I got down into like 43%, 45%, and then I battled my way back up recently with a better win rate on it. But I'm only down at 751 average XP, which is pretty low for me anyway. I only got to 75-ish% on my mark of excellence, so I got the 1 mark. Like I said, I had 30 or 40 battles into it before I think the mark stuff even started. And so I think I could probably get this thing 2 mark, but I'll probably never play it enough to do so. 65% on the hits. I just had a hard time. The gun is a little bit derpy for a TD. That plays into the whole idea that it's a glass cannon that doesn't really have much of a cannon. So it's neither accurate, nor does it hit hard, nor does it particularly reload very quickly and have a high DPM. It's just kind of meh. The gun is a little bit horrible. So I did have trouble hitting with this gun. I would really like that to be 75. I would say if my hit rate was 10% higher, I probably would have had a much better win rate in this thing and certainly a lot more damage or DPM. So I survived 42%. Generally, surviving that much means that you're going to have a pretty good win rate, but that did not translate. Damage ratio is good at 2.06, destruction 1.84, averaging 1239 damage, only 249 assists. Kind of checks with a TD. You're more in the tracking / end game spotting kind of stuff if you're still around. You can see the spotting's pretty low right there. And I had a 3,340 damage game with a 6 kills maximum, so not that amazing actually in the old Baby Scorp. Do. I ended up with a rammer in the bonus slot. We have an IA and an IRM. It cannot run vents because it is an open tank. There's maybe a couple other things people might want to use in here. There is the possibility of the old camo net, binocs, because its view range is horrible as it sits 367. I don't really know why it's so bad as an open top tank, but Wargaming does seem to rely a little bit on the height of tanks to some extent for view range, and this is a fairly low tank. I don't know, it just has horrible spotting. So optics potentially, or the binocs if you're going to be very still, are a possibility on this tank. I don't know, you could chuck a turbo on it to get around a little faster, but I think really at the end of the day, other than maybe going full stealth mode with a camo net and binocs, this is probably about the best setup you're going to get. Gets it turning around a bit, improves its dispersion down to 0.29. I will say that I had a better time with the gun after I put the IA on it, but because it was a fairly miserable situation without it. It only has a 30-degree field of regard on the turret, so it only turns 30 degrees on there, and the dispersion on movement and turret turning is horrific. So anytime you move this thing, especially if you move the hole in the turret at the same time, the bloom just explodes. I had an okay crew running for the whole time that I cranked it up to 100. I did have Brothers in Arms, and I'm only on 2 skills working on the third. So there's some things obviously working against this. Really quickly, the AP is at a pretty hefty and pretty nice 219 pen. So the pen's actually very good on this tank. 275, which is good for a tier 7 TD with a heat shell though. The velocity is okay at 12. The AP velocity is disappointing at 914. That is a limb fact. And I will say, for a tank that you want to snipe with, when you have kind of a bad dispersion situation, you have a lot of bloom when you're moving around trying to get shots and a low shell velocity, I struggled hitting things with this tank, especially if they're moving at range. What I'm going to do though is we're going to take a look at a game where it did work out for me. It's not an amazing epic game, but it gives you a general idea of this thing and how it runs. So I would say overall, we'll get to my assessment at the end, but extremely average at best kind of TD. Baby Scorp, we're on Himmel's Live Oaks Dorf, spawned into the south, and I get a kind of a lucky shot there. This is going to work out for me quite a bit on this particular match. You can see the nice IA going down. Given time to zoom in, not be bothered, the tank can be quite accurate and good in terms of being a sniper. It's just when they're moving, I got lucky on that EBR. So look how long it just takes to zoom in. There we go. So we get a shot. Try not to move too much. Follow this guy back. And we drop one on him. Okay. So some of that's that slow velocity, gives you a bit of that softball action right there. And we take out a pretty important tank, being the G-Sort. I'm bottom tier on this particular match. You can see I'm running 8 heat. What was it? 32, I think, AP. And then we've got 2 HE just for giggles in there. We've taken up a sniper spot. We're just kind of hanging out right here on this particular map on Malinovka Dorf. It is Malinovka, right? No, Live Oaks. Where did I get Malinovka? I don't know. Himmel's Live Oaks Dorf. Knock a tree down there, add a little cover. Sort of sitting out in the open, if I'm honest. I probably don't need to be doing that. I'm not too worried about them coming up the middle. The 1357 is over there, and our scout is over on the edge, but I should probably be in cover. I'm going to take a really bad shot here. I should have had this guy a couple times, I think. We get reloaded. He gets behind something. Probably one of those buildings right there on the edge. A little bit of spastic movement on my part. This is where I'm going to miss him. Oh, just came a little too far out, so I should have been able to come up with that kill. That is me, not the tank. Right there. Me and my systems. My poor hand-eye coordination here. We find another baby Scorp over there. We let him have it with 241. It does have a 240 alpha gun. I think this actually only tracks on this particular shot. Nope, I did get him. Never mind. We switch to HE, and oh, missed him. Dadgummit. Now we have the super wandering around. So we're having a pretty good time of it right here. We've won the city up there in the north. The tracks are a little bit in question, but the G-Sword's doing a pretty nice job. We have a Foch backing them up and another TD sitting back over there, the WT. So I'm not too worried about that flank falling quite yet. So we're going to hang out. And it's going to end up, you know, I hang out a little longer than I usually do. The reason being, this thing just can't take a hit, right? It's not particularly fast. It's not a hold-down tank. It's an open top. HE obliterates it. You don't want Artie to find you. So you really find yourself hanging out a lot further back in this thing, or at least hiding in as many bushes as possible. So kind of boring gameplay. It's one of the reasons I don't particularly like TD gameplay or glass cannon gameplay. We're going to get a couple guys over here as our G-Sword tries to take them on. And I'm going to miss a few potential shots here. This guy looks like, let's shoot him. Nope, he get down underneath there. So he was headed downhill. Covers up inside that little opening on the tracks over there. The 34-3 dies, that's good. Not really sure why I'm following him. I know he's over on that other side. So I need to be pushing over to the tracks here pretty soon and helping these guys out. See the ISM there. I'm wondering how many more tanks they have, but if you kind of count noses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's just a bad shot. There was no lead. So that's a slow shell velocity. I'm not going to hit that guy. So let's head over this way now. And it's pretty much a one battle. We've got 1,488 damage. And I found if I'm going to do well in this tank, this is the kind of battle I needed to have. What I will say about it is it has just enough speed. It'll go up to like 45 or so. It has just enough speed to kind of get you forward enough to keep your gun in the game if things are going well. It also has a decent enough speed to run away. So I was very prone to bailing out of situations with this thing. What it does not have is it does not have enough armor to do anything in terms of if it gets cornered or it gets forced into a hold down fight or anything like that. So we'll push up here and I'm going to get a few kind of, I don't know if I really want to call them lucky shots necessarily, but dispersion's on my side, let's put it that way. T-26 is hitting me. So we're up here on the tracks and we find a couple guys who are just out in the open. So we'll wait till we get all the way zoomed in and we'll fire. There we go. So we get a crit. We actually tracked him, but he moved. That's strange. Unless he fixed it just as I did it. Kind of lucky there, actually, because I didn't put much lead fire on that particular shot. Center of mass. And someone hits him right before I did, I think. Yep, because I killed him with the 66, so I was going to have a hard time taking all those hit points, but somebody already nailed him once. So we crank it up to 2,052. And to be honest, this is kind of how I felt this tank went. If I had a good game, it was a lot like this. The rest of the team was rocking and rolling. I was able to stay hidden and shoot cleanup shots or just dump some damage back into people. I just never really had that big breakout game. As you can tell with the, what was it, 3,000 top damage? I should have fired that off, actually. We got the AT, let it zoom in most of the way. He dies. I shift over there because I figured he would be dead. I was hoping this guy would come out, but he didn't quite. And we just sneak one in, right? Just one more. There's the dispersion. That's complete. It's not necessarily RNG, but it's the randomness of the dispersion. Just went exactly where I was pointing. You saw how big the dispersion circle was. It could have been just about anywhere. It happened to go right into that guy, and I crank up a mediocre game up to one of my better games, to be honest, in the old baby Scorp 2,566 with a couple kills. And that's why I wanted to show this game. It was at least a decent game where we got some damage, but that's how this tank went for me. I just don't really recommend it for anybody, to be honest. I played this tank. Well, I'll get to that when we get back into the garage. Hold on. All right, like I was starting to say in the end of the battle right there, I played this particular tank when I just wanted to relax and not worry too much about pushing or trying to be the tip of the spear or being aggressive or really thinking that much at all. Because I knew if I was going to play this thing, I was going to be hanging back, looking for sniper shots, trying to play that TD game. Not really my favorite part of the game. But if at some point I got frustrated with the game and I got tired of, being left out to dry by teammates because I'm being aggressive and they're not kind of stuff, then I would play this and I could just sit back and relax and plink at things. And if I blew up, I didn't care too much. I mean, that's unfortunately about the best you're going to get out of this thing. It's like I said, it sits in a weird place in this game as a glass cannon with not a particularly interesting gun. You have the WT, you have the RHMB, you have the Su-130 PM, you have the Scorpion G Tier 8, German Scorpion. These are all glass cannons that hit hard and are stealthy, and yes, they have no armor, but you've got that gun, right? The gun is the thing. This is the same tank without the cool gun. It is very unimpressive, let's put it that way. But it does sit in the middle of Tier 7 TD, so it's not horrible. That's about the best I can say for it. The best thing about it is I don't have to play it anymore. That's all I've got for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Run out there and make sure you buy the Scorpion, the baby Scorp code Guido. There's no code. What's that hair doing there? Stop it. All right, that's all I've got. We will see ya.